Welcome back. And of course, we left off talking about the Saskatchewan Roughriders, and there's a lot of headaches going around here, asking what's going on. Of course, prior to the rematch against BC last week, Riders head coach Corey Chamberlain took a page from Green Bay Packers quarterback Aaron Rodgers and told Rider fans to relax after the mounting criticism about the team's defense, which ranks pretty much dead last in the CFL in much of the categories. Now, after another subpar effort by the Green and White, Chamberlain's under more pressure, and so too is GM Brendan Taman, who says he will not fire him, which means people want the GM to be fired. Will heads roll in Saskatchewan if they suffer another loss this week and go 0-5 to Hamilton? We're going to start with actually you, Brett.
I don't think so. They both got contracts till 2017, both the coach and the GM. So why? Sure, but just take a breath, just relax. Like they haven't been blown out this year. All four of their losses, 2 were in overtime. The other 2 were like a touchdown, less than a touchdown. I feel they just need to relax and just like think of all the injuries they've been through. They're still doing good. I think they should probably hire a defensive coordinator. I know Chamberlain.
Mike Benavides is a name that brought up, the former BC Lions head coach.
Yeah, and like I know Chamberlain is really close with Chris Jones, and he's like, if he could do it in Edmonton, I'm going to do it here in Saskatchewan. But, Chris Jones is a different beast. Chris Jones has always had some of the best defense in the CFL. I just feel that they need to get a strong, proven defensive coordinator, and I think they'd be able to figure everything out. But I don't think anybody should get fired, because what's the point of axing them and having to pay them for another 2.5 years? I just say just take a deep breath and relax.
Andrew?
Well, if you axe them now, is it going to turn them into a 14-4 team at the end of the season? Are you going to get a coach in there, brand new offense, brand new everything, and now all of a sudden you're a winner? When is that ever? The only time I can think of that, and it's my Penguins love, is when we brought in Balzova and we won the cup. But that is so rare that it just doesn't happen. And like you look at their losses, like overtime losses, close game losses. Like we were talking, there's 3. They could be a 3-1, 4-0 team. So it's just these little things that I'm sorry, injuries happen, and it decimates teams. Your starting quarterback goes down at the beginning of the year, and now you have to try and build around that. They've done well, but still it's a big shock to your system and something else you have to go and spend time focusing on rather than maybe your defense. So I would tell Rider fans to just lay low,
relax,
take a breath. I know it's hard telling sports people to tone it down, but it's only 4. It's a long season, so got lots of time to go.
All right, guys, how about this? We'll talk about Zach Johnson and his improbable win at the Open Championship out in St. Andrews. You look at some of the names that he was up against, especially heading towards the final day. Dustin Johnson, of course, fell off, the bridesmaid of the majors, of course. Then you bring in a guy like Jordan Spieth, the back-to-back majors winner. You had the defending champion Louis Oosthuizen, that is. Mark Leishman, who's also in the playoff, but yet Johnson delivered. And I ask you guys, what is the bigger takeaway from this? Was it Johnson's performance being steady, or the fact that you had a couple of these names collapse towards the end? I'll start with you.
I think Dustin Johnson, I should say, I think his collapse was insane. Like, he was cruising the first 2 days, and the second 2 days, it's like, whoa, what happened? Like, he was gone with the wind. No, I'm just kidding, but that's pretty much what happened after
Well, it was windy and rainy.
So after that round 2, he was gone, non-existent. And Zach Johnson, he was, just like you said, steady. He was always there. He was always around the top, and when it mattered, it mattered. And they always say that golf is turning into the short man's game, or the way they play, and that's what he is. He's that type of guy, and I thought it was incredible, like just to see him win and all that, and like his emotions was incredible, and I feel he deserved it. The fact that he was just consistent the whole time, and I know I liked how it went down to a playoff, because when it's playoffs, those are always the best. But it was cool to see.
And it provided a lot of great drama, and exactly. What better guy than Zach Johnson to win it? But do you think he won it by his own merit, or was just mostly you had a lot of guys collapse? Jordan Spieth, so close, but unfortunately that bogey really hurt him towards the end. Well,
you got to give him credit, though, the fact he went -7 to the first 12 holes in the final round to get himself into that playoff picture. It's golf's an individual game. He did it himself, and maybe people didn't help. But if you look at the leaders, they still were putting up -3s, -4s to keep that up there. So he had to work to get even into that playoff round, and then in the playoff round, put up a good solid 4 holes as well. So I think we'll take away from the fact that Spieth was that close to being in a playoff to go for major number 3. But I think you have to look at a guy's play and what he can do on a final day to get himself in that position on that course too. Let's remember what course we're playing here. So that to me is the biggest takeaway. You come back from so far down, and then Dustin Johnson's just didn't show up after 2 days of golf. I don't understand it. +6 is awesome, but
it's what happens. What happens?
I'll
guys.
take a +6 on St. Andrews.
Oh, yeah.
I will.
All right, how about this? We're going to move on to baseball now. Pitchers are a commodity, especially for the Toronto Blue Jays. They need arms, definitely. They've tried to solve their bullpen issue, but of course there's a few guys available that are still in the mix. Mike Friars, you have Jeff Samardzija, Cole Hamels, a few names out there, and I'm going to have to give this one to you because you've been the most frustrated when we were talking about this, Brett. Where should the Blue Jays start? What do they need?
I think the first thing they need to do is go and get Jonathan Papelbon. I feel you lock him in year 9, you put Sanchez at 8, you got Osuna at 7. I think that's the best back end of that bullpen anybody has in the major leagues. Name a team that is going to want to go out there down by 1 run in the bottom of the 7th to face Osuna. Oh, next we got Sanchez. Oh, now we got Papelbon. With their offense and that back end of a bullpen, I think they'd be phenomenal. But I feel if they go and get Papelbon, that they should go and try and get a starter. I think at that sense, Hamels is gone. I would go for Jeff Samardzija. He's still kind of younger. His slider is one of the best in the game. It can shut down the bats in the AL East. I feel Samardzija and Papelbon are the 2 things they should go for in the trade deadline. And, it's kind of what to do with Sanchez. They say he's coming back in the bullpen. He should have been in the bullpen at the beginning of the year.
Let the kid throw the heat.
Exactly. And you know what? He's the type of guy that he throws max effort. Let him go out there for an inning and throw max effort. No one is going to touch him. I feel Papelbon, Samardzija, and with Sanchez in the back end at 8, Osuna at 7, that they could probably win the World Series.
And this is the year they have to go all in. If you've ever picked a year, now is a time to do that because the AL East is terrible. If you win the wild card, you win the AL East. That's pretty much how it's going to work out. So, yeah, they need a starting pitcher and a relief. You have those mixed with that offense. I'd pick any team to try and beat the Jays after 6 innings being down. Good luck. You're not going to happen.
Exactly.
And this is that year to do it. If you're ever going to throw everything in and say we're going to win the World Series this year, or say at least make the playoffs. Let's just start there with the Jays.
Baby steps.
Yeah, let's just make the playoffs first. But you have to break that history of not making the playoffs. And if ever there's a time to do it, it's now. Sacrifice some of your youth because this is the team that's going to do it right now in Toronto. And Canada wants it, Toronto wants it, and it'll just start more players coming to Toronto. I think if you start getting to the playoffs and start being the team, not the Cinderella team or the team that's always left out because the Yankees and Boston are always there.
You know what Canada also needs? Some Olympic winners, some gold medalists. And we're starting to see maybe the precursors for that during Toronto over the last couple of weeks when it comes to the Pan Am Games. More significantly, what happened the other day when you had the women's basketball team beat the Americans, who were heavily favored. First ever international medal for Canada, gold that is. And then on top of that, you also had the men's baseball team beating the Americans at their own game, coming back to win the gold medal. Are these significant steps for Canada moving forward when it comes to competing against their fellow neighbors down south?
Not easily it is. If you could watch the baseball game, everyone actually saw the game. There's a lot of angry people about not seeing that baseball game. But when it comes to Pan Am, it's Canada versus U.S. And if you can get that kind of leg up over them, then there's a lot of good teams in baseball too. Let's not remember there's a lot of South American teams that are great. So, but you need to beat the Americans. They're always those teams. So I think that's a big step for them, especially with Olympics coming up soon, like your trials for basketball as well. You need that kind of leg up going into those because it matters more on the Olympic stage. Pan Am's great and all, but you want winners on the Olympics.
But is this significant for Canada when it comes to saying, hey, we can beat the Americans, who've been pretty much one of those countries that dominates these Olympics, knowing that you can do it at their own game, I think provides a lot more significance than we think.
Well, I think so too, definitely. It's like hockey is always us. And if the Americans beat us, we'd be upset because that's just our pride. The fact that we're beating them in their own pastimes is even more, I feel like, because I go there expecting to win hockey. And when it comes to these sports, I don't go there expecting to win that. But when we do, it brings such a pride to be a Canadian, to be like, we beat them. And I feel like the women's basketball, that game was awesome. Like, the girls played really well. And then for the basketball, Canada has been steadily getting better against the States. You go back to the last World Series there. not the World Series, but the World Series of Baseball. Canada just about beat them. The States, and even the States had a strong lineup. We had not our strongest, right? Nor did the States, but still, just knowing that we can play with them in their sports, I feel it makes Canada more proud to say that, you know what, we can even beat you at your own sports.
All right, guys, we're going to take a commercial break. When we return, we got Over Under next.